ওকে, এটা আমাদের ওই ডেভেলপমেন্ট ইকোনমিক্স এর পেপারে রয়েছে, দ্যাট ইজ সিসি 14 এ ইউনিট 3টা আমি করাচ্ছি, সেটা সারপ্লাস লেবার অ্যান্ড ডিসগাইজড আনএমপ্লয়মেন্টের যে টপিকটা সেটা। এরপরে আমরা এখান থেকে চলে যাব হচ্ছে পেজেন্টস অ্যান্ড ডুয়ালিজম উইথ ও উইদাউট সারপ্লাস লেবার, সেটা একটা আমাদের টপিক আছে। আর একটা আছে আমাদের লুইস মডেল আর রানেসফে মডেল, আর লাস্টলি আমাদের মাইগ্রেশন মডেল, দ্যাট ইজ হ্যারিস্টোডারো মডেল আছে। সো today we start with surplus labor and disguised unemployment. This concept, when we discuss this concept, it was initially given by Ragnar Knox. So what was this concept? That some labor can be withdrawn from subsistence farming without reducing the volume of farm output. That implies that the farm output is at its maximum when output or total product is maximum. In technical terms, marginal productivity of labor over a wide range is zero. So according to Knox, surplus labor exists when marginal productivity of labor is zero over a wide range. This idea may be very difficult to accept for two reasons. One, who will employ people with zero marginal product? And secondly, how can these marginal people live? What do they eat if they produce nothing? They need some food to survive. If they produce nothing, how can they live? So we have an answer for both these questions. Firstly, the fact that subsistence farming uses family labor and not wage labor. So here, if there are 5 members of the family, all of them go to work in the field, in the farm. So here no one is hiring. If there is a question of hiring or paying a wage to the laborers, then the question of marginal product being equal to wage would have arisen. But here what we find is that the only family labor is being used. So there is nothing lost if we assume that the marginal product of labor is zero. Now the answer to the second question lies in the fact that the family lives by sharing total product of the farm. Suppose if you talk about our families also, the income that comes to the family is shared equally by all. Like we are not living at the subsistence level. That means that there are 100 kgs of food being produced and that is being equally divided among 5-6 members of the family. No, that question. I just mentioned it to let you realize that always the income that comes into the family may be shared by all. So if the average product per person falls below the physical level of subsistence, the outcome is the Malthusian state of starvation leading to cutting down of numbers or checking their further increase. That is, everyone gets the average product. The total product is divided. A total product of the family is divided equally among all members of the family. If this average product is below the subsistence level, what will happen? We will have the state of Malthusian state of starvation. I hope you have heard of the Malthusian theory of population, where Malthus mentioned that population grows at a geometric progression and food grows at what the arithmetic progression. So there will be a point of time where the uh, output, the food will be lower than what is required to survive. Then there will be either the population growth will be stagnated by some calamity of any sorts, or the population may also fall. This never happened, so we need not be bothered about Malthus's theory. But what we want to emphasize here is that the total product is shared equally among all the family members. And secondly, we are talking in terms of family labor. So the question of not appointing them does not arise. Now, Knox had a suggestion regarding the utilization of surplus labor in the development process. He said that it is desirable to transfer the surplus labor to produce capital goods while keeping the consumption of food by the population as a whole constant through taxation and direct control. Suppose we are withdrawing some labor from the farm. So there are lesser number of people in the farm. These, the people whom we are removing are being sent to places where they can do a bit of capital formation or produce capital goods, etc. So the people who are staying back, they have a larger produce at their hand, but there should be some way or means of keeping their per head consumption as before, because the people who are moving out from the rural farm sector to outside that sector needs that produce to survive. So this can be done through taxation or some sort of control. Now, Jacob Weiner noted 2 points. One, it would not be a solution in the short run, as in the short run, transferring labor out of agriculture might reduce total output, because in the short run, it is not possible to reorganize the production process very easily. So Weiner's comment was that it would not be a solution of the short run. Secondly, Knox ignored the inevitable loss of food involved when food is being transported from the farm sector to somewhere else. There may be spoilage, spillage, deterioration, anything of the sort. So Knox seemed to have ignored that taking the food, they were packing the food that they were consuming at land and taking it outside the farm sector and consuming exactly the same amount of food is not feasible according to Weiner. So Weiner made 2 points. One, that Knox is ignoring about the spoilage of food when taken outside the farm sector, and he mentioned that this is not a solution in the short run, because people will find it very difficult to reorganize the process of production. Now we come to Koestner's comment. What did he say? Knox's argument fails to take account of the fact that the urban worker needs more calories than the idle rural inhabitant. That is, when leading a life in the urban sector, we have much more to do. We need lot more food, lot more calories, so than people residing in the farm sector. So Knox's argument fails to account for this fact. So this is what we have to say about Knox's theory of surplus labor. Now, Amartya Sen tried to resolve some of these matters. He took to the Knox's definition of surplus labor and asked if marginal productivity of labor over a wide range is zero, why is labor being applied at all? So he is thinking that there is some fault in the logic of defining or interpreting the marginal productivity of labor. So he gave in the following figure, we find that output is measured on the y-axis and labor on the x-axis. Output is reaching a maximum when OL1 amount of labor is used. After that, output remains constant. We have come across this kind of production function when we did Leontief production function, when total product of labor or capital curve was like this. So here, what we are finding, no matter how much labor we apply, this will not change, output will not change. So L1, L2 area, this area is where surplus labor exists. So he tries to resolve this confusion by distinguishing between labor and laborer. He meant to say not too much labor is being spent in the production process, but too many laborers are spending it. That means disguised unemployment takes the form of smaller number of working hours per head per year. This implies marginal productivity of the laborer is nil over a wide range, and productivity of labor is equal to zero at the margin. There is no contradiction between disguised unemployment and rational behavior. In a family-based peasant economy, a piece of land that can be cultivated fully by 2 may actually be looked after by 4 if there is no other employment opportunity. This is presented in the following figure. Now, we look at this figure. Here we measure total output, here labor, and here the number of laborers. Now, total output curve, as before, increases, reaches a maximum, then it remains horizontal parallel to the labor axis. So the maximum amount of labor that will be used is OL1. Now, here we are measuring number of laborers. So there are OP2 number of laborers. Each laborer is working 10 hours a day. That is OL1 by OP2. That is total amount of labor divided by number of laborers. Now, suppose we need 30 hours of work to get the maximum amount of output. Now, it's a family farm. There are 6 brothers going to the field every morning, each working for 5 hours. Now consider the normal working day is not 5 hours, maybe 6 or 7 hours. So if the total amount of 30 hours of work can be done by 5 people and taking away one, then that one is surplus. The last one, 6th brother, is surplus. Or if these 30 hours of work can be done with 4 brothers, then 2 brothers are surplus. So here, if we consider the normal working day to be OL1 by OP1 or tan beta, so this the number of laborers represented in the area P1 to P2 are surplus. So this is how Sen tried to understand the concept of surplus labor, which is manifested in lesser number of working hours who are working in the field. That is, they are employed but in a disguised way. So here we find that P1, P2 is the volume of disguised unemployment. Difficulty with concept of disguised unemployment leading to shift of labor from rural area will lead to some reorganization of the techniques of production in that area. Implies concept of zero marginal productivity from strict theoretical point of view becomes difficult to apply. However, from the point of view of operational policy, conceptual complications are not very important. Have you understood up till here? কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে? কেউ বলো কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে কিনা?
না ম্যাম।
বোঝা গেছে পুরো?
না ম্যাম, কোশ্চেন নেই।
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, বলছি যে আপনি এই মানে স্লাইডটা আমাদেরকে পাঠাবেন তো?
হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু এখন শোনো, নালে কি করে বুঝবে?
না না, আমি মানে তাহলে আমরা লিখব, নোট ডাউন করব না, আপনাকে
না না, নোট করতে হবে না, নোট করতে হবে না।
হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে ম্যাম, এমনি কোনো অসুবিধা নেই।
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে। Now we come to 3 possible interpretations of the concept of disguised unemployment, which are commonly found in the literature. This is illustrated in this figure. Now, firstly, first concept. What is the first concept? We equate margin. Suppose initially we have the total number of workers is OA. OA number of workers are available in the farm. Now, we find the equilibrium by equating marginal product to the subsistence wage. So this gives us the employment in the subsistence sector. So what will be the amount of surplus labor? OA minus OS. That is AS. Okay. Now, secondly, the concept of surplus labor where we assume marginal product is equal to 0. So where the marginal product curve cuts the x-axis, here marginal product is 0, then here surplus labor will be dA. This is known as the static surplus. Now we come to the third concept of surplus labor. What is that? With the withdrawal of surplus labor, what happens? Marginal product curve pivots around this point and we get the amount of people working at the farm as OU. So the surplus labor will be of the order AU. So we have the highest surplus labor when we are thinking in terms of this, that is surplus marginal productivity is equal to subsistence wage. This was used by Lewis for his unlimited definition of unlimited supplies of labor. And this is the highest volume of surplus labor we are getting. Secondly is the volume, which is AU. This gives us the dynamic surplus. QSR. This gives us the dynamic surplus. So we find that when we are talking in terms of surplus labor, in terms of the Lewis model, we get the largest volume of surplus labor. And when we think that marginal productivity of labor is equal to 0, we are getting the minimum amount of surplus labor. So if we can go through these again, it will make it a bit clearer to you. That is, one possible measure of disguised unemployment is a gap, difference or gap between the number of workers available to work, that is OA here, and the amount of employment, which equates the marginal product of labor and subsistence wage. So this is our first category of surplus labor. This is the definition of unlimited supplies of labor in Lewis's model. We will do the Lewis's model in great detail probably in the next class. I don't know whether I'll be able to finish this today. Lewis's model, where if the marginal product of labor is below the institutional or subsistence wage, landowners have no interest in retaining these workers and therefore do not compete for them with the industrial sector. Now, the second, also we talked about the dynamic surplus. Second possible measure of disguised unemployment is the difference of the gap between the actual number of workers available for employment, OA, that is the entire thing, and the level of employment at which marginal product of labor is 0, that is OD, where that marginal product curve cuts the x-axis, which is sometimes referred to as static surplus. This surplus is obviously less than if disguised unemployment is defined as labor with a marginal product below the institutional or subsistence wage. Now, the third type of surplus disguised unemployment is the difference between the actual number of workers available and the level of employment at which marginal product of labor would be 0 if some change occurred which enabled the same level of output to be produced with fewer men. This is represented by pivoting the marginal product curve to MP1. Disguised unemployment as is now measured by the difference between OA and OU, which is sometimes referred to as the dynamic surplus. Now, we come to estimation of surplus labor. Up till now, we tried to understand the definition of surplus labor or disguised unemployment and what are the types of surplus labor. Now we come to the actual work of estimating surplus labor. That is to know whether surplus labor exists or not in the rural or agricultural sector of less developed countries. Now, here also there are three main ways of estimating whether surplus labor exists in the sense that labor's marginal product is 0. We come to the first case. The first examines the instances where substantial numbers of agricultural labor force have been withdrawn from the land, either to work on some industrialization project or as a result of illness, and to observe whether agricultural output falls or not. The purpose here is to withdraw the labor and see whether total product in the agricultural sector has fallen or not. It assumes that if it falls, then there is no surplus labor. If it doesn't fall with the withdrawal of labor from the farm sector, there is surplus labor. Now, this method was followed by Schulz in 1964. Now, we are all aware about the epidemic, influenza epidemic in India in 1918-19, when approximately 8% of the agricultural labor force lost their life. Now, what Schulz found was that in the following year, both acreage as well as output declined. With this decline, he concluded there does not exist surplus labor in Indian agriculture. But what Mehra finds that Schulz failed to distinguish between the summer and winter season of the year following the epidemic. Mehra has shown that summer production, which just followed the epidemic, was not in fact reduced, and the decline in agricultural production in 1920 found by Schulz was entirely due to reduction in winter crop, which could have resulted from a bad monsoon. So here, though Schulz concluded that the surplus labor does not exist, Mehra begged to differ, and he said that there is this fallacy in Schulz's method by not distinguishing between summer and winter production. Now, the second method of estimating the static surplus is to take the difference between the labor available and the labor required to produce the current level of agricultural output with given techniques, making due allowances for seasonality of production. The estimate of the magnitude of surplus labor in this case will vary with local conditions and what is regarded as a normal working day. Now, there is a third approach to estimate agricultural production functions to test whether elasticity of output with respect to labor input is significantly different from zero or not. This approach indicates whether there is surplus labor or not, but is not able to measure the magnitude. Now, we come to further important questions which will clear our doubts about surplus labor or disguised unemployment to a certain extent. এতক্ষণ অবধি সব বুঝেছো তো? বুঝা গেছে?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম।
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে। So while discussing labor's marginal product in agriculture and the extent of disguised unemployment, two important distinctions need to be noted. First, between farms which hire labor and those which do not. And secondly, between harvest and non-harvest time. So, we need to make these two important distinctions when we are talking about labor's marginal product. Otherwise, the whole exercise becomes futile. So while the production function approach, within the production function approach, this distinction is easily made explicitly and is a very fruitful approach for that reason. Now, distinction between hired and non-hired labor. The marginal product of family labor can hardly be zero if workers are hired, nor can the marginal product of hired workers themselves be zero if they are paid. Now, here in this sentence, we have clubbed two things. Firstly, a family has hired labor. That means the people who are working from the family can never have zero marginal product. Secondly, no one will hire labor if they have zero marginal product. So, the marginal product of family labor can never be zero if workers are hired, nor can the marginal product of the hired workers themselves be zero if they are paid. Now, Desai and Mazumdar took a sample of Indian farms and divided it into those using hired labor and those not. You can easily guess the results they have obtained. Differences between the two groups are striking. The marginal product of labor on the farms hiring the labor is significantly different from zero. This result is obvious, but on farms not hiring labor, the marginal product is not significantly different from zero. However, it should be remembered that zero marginal product per man hour or per man day is not a necessary condition for surplus labor. Surplus labor can take the form of small number of hours or work, days worked, as shown by Sen, and which we will do in the paper by Sen named Peasants and Dualism, with or without surplus labor. Now we come to the second point of distinction. That is the distinction between harvest and non-harvest labor. Nath in 1974 suggests that the busy season and slack season labor inputs should be included as separate arguments in the production functions. They should be separate variables in the production functions. He adopts this approach in a cross-section analysis of 150 farms in the Firozpur district, Punjab, in India for the period 1967-68, relating annual output to busy season labor, slack season labor, and other inputs using a Cobb-Douglas production point. Nath again expectedly finds that marginal product of busy season labor is indeed positive, but that of slack season labor is not significantly different from zero. So we come to a conclusion about this, that is marginal product of labor on family farms who with no hired labor in the slack season may well be zero, implies static surplus exists. But where agriculture is partly commercialized and in the harvest season the marginal product of labor is positive and the reductions in agricultural labor force would impair agricultural output. Now, the Lewis model and various other models, these are classical models. Now, the defenders of the classical model of development, for example, Maglin, claim the purpose of classical model is to draw attention to the fact that marginal product in industry far exceeds the opportunity cost of labor in agriculture, and those who use the classical model normally stipulate some dynamic change as migration takes place. This leads to the question of measurement of dynamic surplus, which is the difference between the actual labor employed and the labor required given some small change in technique, including an increase in the number of hours worked per day. We have learnt about the difference between the static surplus and the dynamic surplus a little while ago. In our previous, just the discussion just previous to this, we talked about the static surplus. Now we are talking in terms of the dynamic surplus. Unfortunately, in this case, investigators who have measured the dynamic surplus have not generally distinguished between the cause of the surplus or made explicit the assumptions on which their estimates of labor requirements are based. And this is a major reason why estimates and opinions differ on the extent and existence of disguised unemployment. It implies if the surplus labor is measured simply by the difference between the amount of labor that, in the investigator's opinion, should be necessary to produce a given output and the amount of labor that there actually is. This does not distinguish between low productivity due to such factors as poor health, lack of incentives, a preference for leisure, primitive technology, or the seasonal nature of production. There may be genuine differences in the extent of disguised unemployment within and between countries. Different investigators may be estimating different things. We have already seen that a large part of the observed surplus labor may result from seasonal nature of production. Studies which exclude this possibility will certainly overestimate the existence of disguised unemployment. The introduction of small amounts of capital to substitute for labor at times of peak demand could release substantial quantities of workers for the industrial sector without agricultural output falling. If disguised unemployment is seasonal unemployment, the dynamic surplus may be very large. An attempt has been made to define a set of logically distinct types of disguised unemployment to avoid this confusion and conflict by Robinson in 1969. 5 types of disguised unemployment were distinguished. Number 1, unrealized potential output per worker due to low nutritional and health levels of labor force. Number 2, low levels of output per unit of labor input due to inadequate motivation for the cultivators to pursue maximization. Low average product due to material income as compared to leisure. Fourthly, unemployment due to lack of cooperative factors, for example, technological unemployment. And lastly, seasonal unemployment. Even with a logically distinct classification of the causes of disguised unemployment, measurement will still be arbitrary depending on the investigator's judgment of the potential level of output if the causes of low output were to be removed. I may think a different thing, you may think just another thing. It depends on your perspective, how you want it to be. So ideally, studies of disguised unemployment must be micro-oriented based on detailed information of actual and potential labor utilization and with the assumptions of the analysis explicitly stated. এত পর্যন্ত ক্লিয়ার সবার?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম।
আচ্ছা। Now, as we have noted earlier, a reconciliation between those who argue that there is such a phenomenon as disguised unemployment in the sense of very low marginal product of labor in agriculture, and those who disagree can be done by making the distinction between the amount of labor time employed and number of men employed as suggested by Sen. In a wage payment system, it is extremely unlikely that labor would be used up to the point where marginal product is zero. Wage is positive implies marginal product is positive. However, profit maximizing behavior is quite consistent with redundant labor. That is to say, we can think the producers to be rational, that is, their objective is to maximize profit, and it has no inconsistency with redundant labor. Labor is employed up to the point where the marginal product of a unit of labor time is equal to wage. Disguised unemployment takes the form of a small number of working hours worked per person. This we have seen in the initial part of our lecture as given by Sen. It is not that there is too much labor time, but too many laborers are spending it. Total output would fall if workers are withdrawn from land unless those remaining work longer hours to compensate it. This reorganization is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, total product is bound to fall. If there are, say, 10 people and 5 leave the farm and the remaining 5 work the same number of hours as before, then total product is bound to fall. So there must be some reorganization in the farm after the surplus labor is withdrawn from the farm. How much disguised unemployment is estimated to exist depends on what is regarded as a normal working day. I may think 8 hours is a normal working day. You may think 7 hours is a normal working day. Some other person may think that 10 hours is a normal working day. So, how much disguised unemployment is estimated will depend on what I think the normal working day to be. Estimates may be subjective, but unlimited supplies of labor exist in the classical sense, provided those remaining in the land work harder and longer. Let us illustrate these points diagrammatically. In this figure, what do we find? We measure output here, we measure labor time here, and here number of workers, as we have done in case while explaining sense concept. So here what do we find? L1 be the point where marginal product of labor time is equal to 0. You know that this is the point, marginal product of labor time is equal to 0. And why? Because here what is happening? Marginal is equal to the subsistence wage. So we get this. Now the number of workers is measured going downward. So the tangent OYL1 of this angle, that is tan A, gives us the working hours. Now, if the tangent O of tan B, that is tangent of angle OXL1, is supposed to be the normal working day, the same output could be produced by OX workers instead of OY workers, and XY amount of workers we will think to be surplus, or they are form a part of disguised unemployment. It can easily be seen that if there was a reduction in the labor force from OY to OT, the number of hours worked per man remained the same, that is tan OTS equal to tan OL1, total output will fall from OQ to OP. That is to say, suppose this Ty amount of labor is withdrawn and the people remaining here do not work the extra hours that is required to maintain the highest level of production, that is this. Then what will happen? This tan alpha is equal to tan of this angle, that is tan OY L1 is equal to tan OTS. That is nothing, that these two lines are parallel to each other. Now, if we trace this back to the total product curve, we find the total product diminishes from OQ to OP. So, if they do not work harder, the people who are remaining back do not work harder, then there is bound to be a fall in the total output. Let us now give an example. Suppose a producer employs 10 men, that is OY is equal to 10. He is doing 5 hours of work a day, that is tan alpha is 5, and the marginal product of the 50th hour is equal to the subsistence wage, OL1 is equal to 50. If one man leaves, say YT, this part, I'll show you in the diagram again. This part, if this part. So if one man leaves, what happens?
ম্যাম কোন পার্টটা আরেকবার দেখাবেন?
কোনটা?
আপনি যে পার্টটা দেখাচ্ছিলেন গ্রাফে, ওটা একবার
আচ্ছা
দেখাবেন?
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা,
মানে আমি জুম করছিলাম তো ততক্ষণে আপনি সরে গেলেন।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, আমরা বলতে চাইছি যে এই পার্ট টিওয়াই,
আচ্ছা ম্যাম,
টিওয়াই পার্টে যদি ওই যে সরিয়ে নেওয়া হলো একজনকে, তাকে বলা হচ্ছে সে হচ্ছে টিওয়াই, মানে ওই পার্টে নাম্বার অফ ওয়ার্কার্স একজন কমে গেল, কত কমলো না টিওয়াই কমলো, সেইটাই বলছি।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে ম্যাম, বুঝে গেছি।
If one man leaves, say YT, total output will fall from OQ to OP. এটা দেখালাম একটু আগে। Unless the 9 workers now do the 50 hours of work previously done by 10 workers. That is, the working day must be increased by T of an hour. মানে সবাইকে T of an hour বেশি কাজ করতে হবে। The amount of disguised unemployment depends on what is considered to be a full day's work. If 10 hours is considered normal, then only 5 workers would be required to do 50 hours of work and 5 would be regarded as redundant or disguised unemployment. The precise condition under which the remaining labor force would supply more work effort have been formalized by Sen in the 1966 paper, which is our next topic, though I don't know the boundaries of the topic yet, so I'll do it later. First I'll do the Lewis model and then I'll go back to this. Now this entire discussion has been taken from Leading Issues in Economic Development by Gerald Meyer and Growth and Development by এপি থার্ওয়াল।
ম্যাম আপনার এই লেখাটার সাথে কি থার্ওয়ালের বইটা রেফার করব?
একদম মিলবে তো, ওখান থেকেই নেয়া তো।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে।
থার্ওয়াল থেকেও নেয়া আর মায়ার থেকেও নেয়া।